We booked Doug to do this. He was with the 49ers, and they were advancing through the playoffs, and we were getting kind of nervous that that might conflict with this. But one of the positive things about us moving the meeting was it cleared out that potential conflict in Doug's schedule. Since losing his best friend AJ, who suffered from severe depression in 2017, Doug has done his best to raise awareness about mental health with a focus on the African American community. So we're really excited to have him with us today, so please welcome Doug Middleton.
Well, first, I just want to thank Michael and Daniel for this opportunity. I was definitely getting a little nervous. I don't know which side I wanted to cheer on, the 49ers or the cheer to make sure I'm here with you all today. So, you know, I don't want to give COVID the credit, but I'm glad we had to do this conference in April because I wouldn't have been able to be here. So, you know, this is an opportunity I'm very thankful to have. I don't take moments like this for granted. This is something that, you know, I prayed for, and to be speaking in front of you all today is a true blessing. I want to first thank my wife, Caroline. She's been with me every step of the way. You know, we've been best friends since my freshman year in college at Appalachian State. And since that moment, we got some App State fans? App State people? Yeah, since we were at App State, our relationship just clicked, and I'm thankful to have her here to support me as I go through this journey with mental health, with football, and just my career and learning new endeavors. So, when I get into what I really want to say to you all today, there's some questions that I want you all to think about. So, if everybody can get out their pens and paper real quick. They said if you write your goals down, you write your dreams down, you got a 42% chance of higher accomplishing those goals and dreams. So the first question I have for you, right now in the moment you felt the most pain in your life, okay? I'm talking about emotional, mental, or physical, the moment that you felt the most pain. Take a minute to do that. Okay, question number 2. Right now, any preconceived stereotypes or narratives that you originally believed about mental health when you started this work. So whether that was, you know, before you became an advocate, a chapter leader, you know, expert, whatever it is that you do now, what were some of the preconceived notions that you believed? Okay, question number 3. Write down your why. What are you here for today? Why are you at the AFSP Conference, National Conference? Why does this mean so much to you? Write down your why for me. Everybody good? Good. So, for me, I've been playing football since the age of 6. You know, I've played in front of crowds of 100,000 plus since I was 17 years old. And, you know, none of that really means as much as this opportunity does right here. So I just want to say thank you all for being here. I know the work that we do with mental health and suicide prevention. We lose a lot of people that we care about. So if you could, just everybody stand up and give yourselves a round of applause just for being here. So this is me. You know, Doug Middleton, 6-year NFL veteran, 2-time Appalachian State graduate. I got my undergraduate degree in political science. I went back and got my master's degree in public administration. I'm a mental health advocate at my foundation, Dreaming Impossible. We work on eliminating the stigma around mental health and also, you know, suicide prevention with youth and student athletes. And on the right, we have a picture of me running down on the kickoff for the Jacksonville Jaguars. back in 2020. So this is who I am, you know. This is who I've been since I was 6 years old. And I know a lot of people are asking, like, what is this NFL player up here doing speaking at a mental health conference? Like, what clue does he have about mental health? You know, athletes don't feel pain, they have it. Athletes don't struggle, they don't have stories, they don't go through anything. Well, I'm here to tell you that that narrative is false. Athletes like Naomi Osaka, athletes like Hayden Hurst, athletes like Layton Johnson, all of them have stories, stories that are well documented on their battles with mental health. All of them have struggles just like you all of them have lost people just like you all. We're not much different than you think. So, football has brought me so much joy. Football has been a bright spot in my life since the age of 6. Football has helped me to build character. It's helped me to have some of the best moments going and winning games, that really mean a lot to me. Winning the first bowl game in school history. Being able to be on successful teams all throughout my life. But football has also caused me so much pain. Pain of not being able to know what else I needed to do to earn that job. Or pain of having to have surgery and 24 hours later having to play in a game 80 plays, the entire game. Pain of having best friends, having relationships with people, but the next thing you know, you lose your job and you never talk to that person again. That's the pain that you have, as a student athlete, as an athlete in general. And there are times where, football has changed the way that I think. It's changed the way that I approach life. I've approached life with the mindset to keep going. I've approached life with the mindset that things will get better. I've approached life with the mindset of never to address some of the pain and the issues that I have. But that mindset, there was a reason that happened in my life where I knew that mindset had to change. I knew the way that I thought about mental health, the way that I just pushed my mental health to the side had to change. And that's because of that pain that I faced with football. For me, since the age of 6, I grew up in Winston-Salem. Football has been a part of my life. And, I grew up in this neighborhood called Savonia Village. They call it the Ville. We produce some of the best athletes in the community. And we, played football at this team called the Winston-Salem Greyhounds. You would never go on another team, cross town to team up because you knew that you wanted to compete with the guys that you grew up with. Sometimes in preparation for that football season, we would just play basketball till the streetlights came on. And it was always 7 to 10 guys all the time that would go in the neighborhood and play basketball. And it was always 2 to 3 that stayed after a little bit longer when the streetlights came on. Now, as a kid, you had to be home before your parents said the streetlights came on. But there was 2 more people that would be out there with me. Number 1 was my brother, because there's no way he was going home before I did it, and I was going to get yelled at. But number 2 was my best friend, AJ. At that moment, I knew, since the age of 6, when we were living in that neighborhood, half a mile down from each other, I knew that I had a best friend, a competitor, somebody that would push me, somebody that would motivate me, somebody that had the same interests that I did. We were 2 student athletes growing up in Winston-Salem by 2 hardworking parents. He had 2 parents, I had 2 parents. And sports was what brought us together. Sports is what brings a lot of people together. But the thing is, life changes for all of us. We go through pain. We go through adversity. But who are the people that we can count on when we go through that adversity? And AJ was one of them. Fast forward to our relationship, in high school, we were still playing football together. But AJ found the love of track. Track was his strong point. Track was something that meant the world to him. He was actually good at it. Football was something that I was good at since I was 6 years old. I was blessed to be able to live out my dream of having success. But when we got to high school, as a good friend, I wanted to be able to run track with AJ because I wanted to continue our friendship. I knew that me supporting him in something that he really enjoyed would mean the world to him. So as I ran track, he ran track, and we both had success, and we both continued to compete. As you see in the top picture right here, this is me and AJ after our county meet where AJ plays first in a lot of events, and I play first in a lot of events. And then you go on and you fast forward right here to our graduation day in high school. This was a moment where both our dads were very proud of us. It was a moment that, I would cherish for the rest of my life, just being able to graduate with my best friend. So going into that, after graduation, I had to figure out what was next. What was next in my life? What was the next plan? What was the next adventure? And that's how I chose Appalachian State. So Appalachian State was a school, that was right up the street. I noticed that at about 11th grade that I wasn't going to be able to play SEC ball, ACC ball. Everybody has that dream. Everybody has the ambition to be able to, one of the few that plays at Alabama or Clemson. Well, that wasn't true for me. I wasn't big enough. They said I wasn't talented enough. So I had to accept the fact that, hey, if I was going to play at the NFL, I was going to have to do it from a school like Appalachian State. Appalachian State means a lot to me. It really means the world to me. I just got awarded yesterday. The chancellor just called me and gave me the award of Young Alumni of the Year, so I'm very honored and proud of that. Thank you. I'm very thankful for that in particular because I was their last scholarship offer. They called me 2 days before signing day and asked me to come to Appalachian State. And, my parents were so frustrated because I had all these other schools that really wanted me to go. I mean, they were recruiting me since, the beginning of my junior year. But I decided to go to Appalachian State, because of a guy named Coach Moore. He believed in me. He supported me. And he knew that I could come to Appalachian State and make an impact. And I put my full trust in him. And, it turned out pretty well. So I'm very thankful for that. So AJ ended up attending Fayetteville State University to run track. We had difference, in careers and schools that we went to. But as student athletes, the experience is pretty much the same. As a student athlete, you don't really have much free time. You wake up 6 a.m., you have to go to weights, and then you have to go to class, and then you have to find time to eat. Then you have to have time to have a social life. Then you have to go practice, and then you got to do your homework. It's not really much time to really enjoy life. And we put so much pressure on our student athletes. We put so much pressure on our athletes to be perfect, to not break. I could just always remember my strength coach saying, push through. It'll get better. Get tougher. Go harder. Those same logic, those same mindsets, when we look at them, we break them down individually. That's not the way that we need to attack our life from a mental health point of view. Yeah, we can say, hey, it's not that bad, or hey, you can just push through it, or hey, it's just another piece of adversity that you have to overcome. Those are the things that I continuously heard from our coaches. And so as a student athlete, those were all the things that I knew. Those were the only things that I knew. So as AJ began to go through his career, and he began to, struggle a little bit with the fact that, sports wasn't going the way he wanted. And for most of us, if anybody's played any sport at a competitive level, whether it was high school or college, we all know that sports doesn't end well for any of us. There's not many athletes like Tom Brady that get to retire when they want to. It's not a lot of athletes that get to walk off the stage to a Super Bowl like Ray Lewis. A lot of athletes end because their time, the lights cut off. Your time is over. There's no further advancement of your career. It's over. And for me, in my life, being able to continue to play football at that time and having that level of success, the only thing that I could tell AJ was to keep going. Because I wanted him to share in the same level of success that I had. But when that didn't happen, I really didn't know how to respond. As a friend, as a teammate, as a brother, as somebody that really truly cares about him, I didn't know what to say. So going into my senior year, I started getting a few calls. I started getting calls from agents. I started getting calls from other people knowing that, hey, I might have a chance to play at the next level. I might have the chance to play in the NFL. And for me, like I said, that would be a dream come true to play at the NFL. And for AJ, he noticed that his time with track was over. So here you go right here is a picture of draft night. To the right, to the far right is my brother Deshaun.
And to the person next to him is AJ. The person next to him is me. And then the other person next to him is my friend Jordan Ford. He's in the back of the room. So this is like 7 years ago. He was my college roommate, but now he does some videographer work with me. And, it just tells you the people that were really close to me stayed close to me. The people that I could really trust, I never really switched up my circle. I always tried to keep the same people, close-knit together. And so this night, we were able to celebrate some of the success that I've had in my career. We were able to celebrate how important, getting a chance to play in the NFL was for me. But for AJ, this was a night that he could celebrate his best friend. He could celebrate the person that, he's had his back. He's been there every step of the way for me. And, I was very thankful of that. Going into my rookie year, my life began to take a turn. I had some success. I had some accomplishments. But then I noticed that AJ's life, he had suffered a traumatic event. He had suffered a traumatic event that caused him to slip into severe depression. At that moment in time, I had no clue what to do. I didn't know the suicide signs, awareness signs. I didn't know any of the risk factors. I didn't know anything. My mom was a counselor. She's worked in this space for a long time. But as her son, I didn't know what to say to her, because every time I talked to her, I already felt that she was just trying to be my therapist instead of my mom. So when my friend was actually struggling, I didn't know what to say to her. And so I went to her and I said, Mom, AJ's struggling. I don't know what to do. And she says, maybe he needs to see somebody. And in the black community, that's a huge issue. I don't know if you all know, if you all have addressed that, but in the African American community, mental health is a taboo topic. It's something that's not really, that's rarely discussed. It's something that, a lot of people have trouble really finding the right words to say. Nobody wants to say the wrong words, and nobody wants to say the right words. So at the end of the day, nothing ended up being said. But for me, I knew I had to do something for my best friend. There was no greater pain in knowing that I could look at him and see him suffering, but I had no clue what to do. I had no clue what to do besides giving him an invite to go see a therapist, or telling him to call this person to check in and see a psychiatrist. They end up putting AJ on medicine for a severe depression. And sometimes he would call me and he would say, hey man, I just feel so foggy. I don't feel like myself. This is not the person that I want to be. And I would see that sometimes AJ wouldn't even want to take a shower. AJ didn't, even want to get out of bed. AJ didn't even want to leave the house. And for some of you, my relationship with AJ was no different than the loved one some of you have lost in this room. AJ was my best friend. He was somebody that I cared deeply about. And to be able to be in a position where I had so much success with myself, but I couldn't help my best friend. And that was one of the toughest moments that I had to realize, is that I didn't know everything. For once in my life, I felt like I didn't know everything. And I felt like I couldn't find out the answers. So AJ's struggling went on. And as you can see in this picture, I don't know if you could tell, but this, like I said, this has been my best friend since the age of 6. I could tell that depression was starting to eat him up. I could tell that he had became a different person. And the thing about it is depression has no identity. Mental health has no identity. I could put up a list of celebrities that all suffer. They all suffer from different mental illnesses. I could put up a picture of Brandon Marshall. And you could look at that picture and not tell the battles that he has to face on his inside. So when I see that picture right there, I see that mental health has no stereotypes. Mental illness has no look. It doesn't discriminate. Black, white, Hispanic. Mental health affects us all. And at that point right there, just taking that picture, when I came back home for the summertime, I really just enjoyed my last moments, with AJ. Not knowing that, things would change, not knowing what would happen next, but I knew that I was about to go to Miami and start training, so I went down there to see him before I left, and this is the picture we took together. His mom took this picture, and, I'll forever have this picture cherished. So we're down there training in Miami. Me and my wife go down there to live in Miami and get ready for my second NFL season. This was, to me, my biggest opportunity. They say the biggest growth happens in the NFL from year 1 to year 2. And for me, this is an opportunity I prepared as hard as I can for. I was training with guys like Vontae Davis, Bobby McCain, Odell Beckham, just superstar guys that I wanted to do what I had to do to take my game to the next level. Well, I got this call from AJ, and he was like, hey, man, how you doing? I was just calling to check on you and see how everything's been going, see how the training's been going, the regular things that friends do. And I called him, I said, yeah, man, I'm doing good. Me and my wife down here having a good time. I'll be back in a few weeks, but just wanted to see how you doing. He said, man, I'm so peaceful, man. I'm at peace, and life's been awesome, man. And I just wanted to touch base with you, before, I went to work the next morning or something like that. Well, after workouts that day, I got a call. I got a call from my dad, and my dad never calls my wife's phone, so I knew something had to be up. So she was like, hey, can you sit down? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll sit down. And she's telling me, AJ has just died by suicide. And at that moment, my answer to question number one is, that was the most painful moment of my life. When I lost somebody that I've been best friends since the age of 6'4", the person that we've shared so many memories, the person that we would just get in the car sometimes and just go to McDonald's. We would skip school at lunch and just head to Walmart just to walk around. Somebody that's been with me every step of the way, somebody that I've called in some of my toughest moments. And he wasn't going to be with me anymore. I remember, speaking at his funeral. I go up the next day to speak at his funeral. And I get up there, and I talk about AJ's struggles. I talk about some of the things that he's had to overcome, some of the adversity that he was facing with mental health in his journey. And as soon as I get done, the pastor gets up. And he says, forget everything he just said about mental health. The most important thing is that you pray and take all your burdens to God. And for me to hear a pastor, I don't know if you all know, but in the African-American community, the pastor is pretty much like the president. Like, my grandma treats her pastor like the most important person in the world. Like, I'll come home, and she'll say, hey, can you go see Pastor Doe and just pray with him? I said, Grandma, I only seen Pastor like 5 times. I don't have a relationship with him. But to her, that is the thing that is her Bible. Whatever he says goes. And for a lot of African Americans, that is the case. The pastor is the political figure. The pastor is the one that solves the problems. If somebody dies in your family, you call the pastor. If you have some troubles in your family, you call the pastor. So for him to say something like that and discredit everything I've said about mental health and the importance of mental health and the importance of caring about each other and the importance about checking up on each other and the fact that there are so many experts and so many professionals that God has put on this planet, but instead of listening to them, instead of reaching out to them, you just need to pray about it. You just need to come see him, and he'll handle everything. So hearing that was tough, But what was even more tough was the fact that I just heard that, and a couple people walked up to me after his funeral and whispered in my ear and said, hey, man, I'm struggling too. I haven't told anybody, but I'm struggling too. I'm not close to taking my life, but I really need to talk to somebody. I really need help. Like, what treatments do you know about? Is there any resources that's out there that can help me? I'm tired of living like this. So imagine hearing all that. Imagine hearing, somebody really just remove everything that you said about mental health and having to go show up to camp and compete for your second NFL season. I got on a plane 2 hours after I buried my best friend. We literally prayed over, his casket, and I went to the airport 2 hours later. And I had to compete with my life on the line, with my family on the line, with my career on the line. I had to use AJ's life, had to use AJ's death. I had to use the pain that AJ gave me. I had to try that and use that for good. So the title of my speech today is There's Pain That Uses You and Pain You Use. For me, AJ's death was pain that I used. I didn't always know that, how to channel that pain. I didn't always know what to do next. I didn't always know, what should I even, who should I even talk to? All I knew that, football was at the top of my list. And football was the only thing that I knew that I could have success in at the time. So I showed up to camp, and, I prepared for the season. I prepared pretty hard, and, I've been down in Miami training my butt off, so the success was there. The success was going to happen. I went out for the first preseason game against the Tennessee Titans. And, I had one of the best games of my career. I think I had 7 tackles, a couple pass breakups. But going into that fourth quarter, I'm flying down the field, right? I'm flying down the field, and I go down to make this tackle. And I hear like a click in my arm. And now, mind you, this is 2 weeks after I just buried my best friend. And I hear this click in my arm. I'm like, man, what could that be? And the trainers come running out. Is everything okay? How do you feel? I was like, I'm not sure. I just know I can't really move my shoulder. So I show up the next day to the facility. I get an MRI, and they check me out. And, I go on as business as usual. I mean, you got to keep getting ready for the next opportunity. We got a week of practice coming up. And the medical staff yanks me out my massage, and they say, hey, we have to meet with you right now. I'm like, man, what could be so important that you got to meet with me right now in the middle of my massage? But I walk in there, and they got, things on the board, and I'm trying to figure out, what the X-ray is, what the MRI is. I can't read any of that stuff. So I'm looking up, I'm like, oh, what does this mean? Well, what this means is you won't be playing football this season. That's what this means. And I'm like, man, there got to be some kind of mix-up or something like that. Maybe you need to take another one. He was like, no, I'm pretty sure that, you tore your pectoral muscle and you won't be playing football at all this season. And so at that moment, I went to the bathroom, and I just sat there and cried. I sat there and cried because 2 of the most important things to me in my life had been taken away. My best friend, AJ, he was gone. And the football and the game that connected us, that brought us together, and the game that's motivated me in my entire life was also gone. Both of the things that I put the most importance in were out of my life. And so I sat there and I just thought about, man, what does God want me to see through all this? All this pain that I'm experiencing, what am I supposed to figure out? And somebody once told me, if you're quiet enough and you listen to your angels, they'll show you what you're supposed to do with your pain. And for me, that's what I did. So going back to that pain that I experienced, I had to have surgery, right? I had to go home and have surgery. And when I went home and had surgery, I made the decision that I wanted to get back in school. I wanted to go finish my master's. I went to ask Coach Bulls, who's now the coach of the Buccaneers. I said, hey, I want to go back to school. I want to take this opportunity to better myself. I know that I won't be able to play football this season, but I know I have to do something positive with this pain that I've experienced. He said, yeah, sure, man, you can go back. Just make sure you stay on top of your rehab and make sure you continue to come and check up with us. And so all that plan sounded very well until I got home and had surgery. And at that point, I struggled even more physically because I couldn't move my shoulder. I couldn't get up. I was drugged up. I was down bad. And so I got on my computer and I just started Googling different things because I still had that pain in the back of my head. I still had those voices in the back of my head of the people walking up to me at the funeral and saying, I'm struggling too. Or the pastor walking up and saying, hey, don't listen to anything he said about mental health. This is what you need to do. I still had those voices back in the back of my head. I knew I had to do something about it. I knew I had to do something for good. And so I just started typing in mental health. I started Googling different things. And the first thing that came up was NAMNE, the National Alliance of Mental Illness. And like I said, appreciate it, we can clap for that. But, I had been attending Appalachian State during the time, just driving back and forth from school to home, doing my rehab. And I saw NAMNE on the website. And, when I typed in NAMNE, I typed in the location that was closest to me. And it was NAMNE High Country. So I called up this number, the NAMNE High Country number, and I said, hey, I would like to meet with somebody. I just lost my best friend. I don't have any clue what to do. All I know is I have this pain. I'm an NFL athlete, and I would love to do something. And so he was like, okay, cool, let's meet up. So we meet up, we go get coffee, and it's him and his wife. And they tell me their story about how, they were the president of NAMNE High Country and that they had lost their son to suicide. And at that point, him being vulnerable made me just want to open up more. And made me just want to share my story. Made me just want to be able to do something to help somebody else. And when he shared his story about how he lost his son, I shared my story about how I lost AJ. About how AJ was no longer with me, but I knew I had a platform and I knew there was something good that I wanted to do. And he sat there and said, hey man, you got a story. There's a lot that you can do with this. People will listen. You can save a lot of lives. You can get people to want to go get help. And when I look at Mike, I look at this guy right here, I see his smile and I see his heart. I see the same heart that he has with everybody in this room. As chapter leaders, as experts, as leaders for AFSP. When people feel pain, they're going to call you. When people don't know what to do, they will call you. When people are looking for motivation, they're looking for next steps, they will call you. Which person are you going to be? Are you going to be Mike? Are you going to be the one with the open heart? Are you going to be the one that's vulnerable? Are you going to be the one that's able to show different resources that this organization has? Or are you going to be me at the time of when my best friend died, uneducated? I had no clue what to say. I didn't know what to do. And now we see the result. But you all have the opportunity to come in here, educate yourselves, make yourselves better, so that when somebody does call, when I call you, you can help. And that's what Mike was able to do. The next thing that I did is I took my pain and I really examined it. I really examined everything that was going on in my life. And I looked at how can I turn this pain, how can I use this pain? How can I really make a difference? How would AJ want me to make a difference? So there's pain that uses you and pain you use. In the top left picture is me hugging AJ's mom at my first event that I put on, in which we trained over 60 youth in suicide prevention. We were able to educate them about all the resources that organizations like AFSP, like NAMNE, we were able to give them financial literacy. We were able to give them Christmas gifts that they wouldn't get, unless they came to an event like this. The bottom picture is a picture of me when I went back to school and got my master's. Appreciate it, thank you. I used all the pain that I had, from the the season-ending injury from losing my best friend to go back to school and get another degree. Since then, I've been, the headline at multiple nominee walks. I've spoken to over thousands of college athletes about mental health, about suicide prevention. Appreciate it, thank you. I've been rated one of the top advocates for tons of magazines, mental health advocates, and I've started my foundation, Dreaming the Impossible. And I've also started another company, a virtual therapy company, to provide therapy for student athletes. All of this was done through the pain that I experienced from losing AJ. So for you and the pain that you experience in your life, you can sit down and you can grieve. You take time to grieve. Take time to hurt. Take time to feel that pain. But if that's all that pain is meant for is just to harm you, then you're doing yourself a disjustice. You got to take a step forward. You got to turn that pain into action. You got to use that pain. You got to try to help somebody else. You got to make the world a better place. And that's what I was able to do. So I knew I was doing this talk. I knew that I was going to have to, come and speak in front of you all. So, like I said, I went to go speak to AJ. I went to his grave site, and I made a quick stop by, and I asked him, I said, man, what do you want me to say? There's a lot of things that I wish I could have done better in my journey. There's a lot of things that I wish I could have done for you to be here today. But what do you want me to tell these people? A room full of experts, a room full of people that really kind of already know everything. What should I tell them? These are the people that, when I'm hurting, I go there. And so I continue to listen. And I continue to listen some more. And there's something that it gives me, A lot of people say that, hey, man, I'm not where you are yet, I'm not there yet. I'm still hurting. I'm still in pain. I don't know how to turn my pain into purpose. I don't know how to turn my pain into good. And so I came up with 3 steps that you can use. These are just 3 quick steps that you can use, when you experience that pain. The first thing you got to do is educate yourself, okay? For me, I had to educate myself. That's why I'm at a conference like this. I'm going to speak, but I'm definitely going to be here all day tomorrow to learn some more. But educate yourself. That pastor has to educate himself. The real sad part about that pastor, and like I told you, the importance of pastors in the African American community, we just lost another student athlete in my same high school 5 years since the day that AJ died. And me and my mom went to the funeral, and we sat there. We knew the family. We knew Kobe. We knew the young man. He went to Towson University. And we sat at the funeral, and we called and checked on his mom and did all the things that we could to help the family. And I literally sat at the funeral and heard him say the same things that the previous pastor said at my best friend's funeral 5 years ago. There was no discussion about mental health. There was no discussion about checking on your loved ones. There was no discussion about resources that's out there. There was no discussion of mental health even mentioned. And for me, this is what motivates me every single day of my life. This is the reason I get up. This is the reason I work the way I do. This is the way I think the way I do, because I know that there's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a ton of work to be done. The second thing you have to do is you have to dream. They say that, when we're kids, we dream so much. We want to be astronauts. We want to be the president. We want to save the world. But as we go through life and we start to feel pain, we start to feel adversity, we start to get more realistic. And the things that we once wanted to accomplish, we don't think about them anymore. What I want you to do is continue to dream. Open your hearts back up. Open your minds back up. The third thing I would like for everybody to do is learn how to tell your story. Everybody in here has a different story. Everybody in here has a different path. There's experts in here. There's people that's just passionate about mental health. There's people that are chapter leaders. There's advocates. Everybody has a different story. Learn how to tell your story. If Mike didn't know how to tell his story, I wouldn't be standing in front of you all today. If Mike didn't know how to be vulnerable with me and be able to put me in a place that where I wanted to do something good with the pain that I had just went through, there is no way that I would be standing up in front of you all today and giving the testimony that I have. So I would say learn how to tell your story, because a story can help so many people. You all are given the platform. You are given the ability to help people. Take advantage of that. So, hold on. Like I said, I took that trip to go see AJ. And I sat there and I prayed. But at the same time, even though I prayed, there was a lot of things that I wanted to say. And so instead of just vocalizing it to him, I put it in a letter. So this is a letter that I wrote to AJ. It says, "Man, bro, I miss you. I miss the days where we go play basketball. I miss the days where we would just go to track practice or go get food during school at McDonald's. I miss the times where I could just walk down the street and talk or call you on the phone and share some good news. More importantly, I miss you having my back and always being there to support me. I feel like I have so much to catch you up on. But first, let me say, when you left, you caused us so much pain. But my pain came from not understanding why you left us. I wish I could have been better. I wish I was the educated and supportive friend you needed. I know I should have been better. Even though it took a long time for me to accept that you may not be here physically, I noticed immediately that you were still here spiritually. I knew you'd be so proud of me. I wish you could see all the people your story has helped. I wish you could see all the people your story has saved. I've learned so much since you left, and now I have come to realize that your pain you caused me was not to harm me, but you gave me the pain because you knew I was the only one that could use it. One day we will meet again, and when we do, I hope that you are just as proud of me as you were the last time we talked on earth. Love you, bro. Doug." To close out, I just want to finish with this quote. This is something that really means a lot to me when I read this quote. I feel like it, really displays the person I am. My life is full with so much adversity. Just because I say, like, I've learned how to use that pain in a purpose, I learned how to use that pain for good, doesn't mean the pain stops. Since that moment, I've had multiple season-ending injuries. I've been cut multiple times, played on different teams. I've had failures in life. I've had things that I weren't good at. But now, instead of just sitting in my failures and sitting in the pain that has caused me, I learned how to use that pain. I learned how to turn the corner, and every second that I turn the corner, I try to think, what is it that you want me to do better? What is it that you want me to do better, God? What is it that you want me to do better, AJ? And still to this day, AJ is right there with me. And this quote that really, it's a small quote, but it really reflects, how I feel about my life. Though we may not always realize it, life's limitations can sometimes inspire us to strive for heights we may not have reached otherwise. I don't know if I would be accomplishing any of this stuff if I didn't go through the pain that I've experienced in my life. I know I went to back to school to get my master's degree. I don't know if I would have did that. I know I started my foundation Dreaming Impossible. I don't know if I would have did that. Those are things that really mean a lot to me, and they all came from pain. So when you experience pain, don't run the other direction. Don't try to push it to the side. Figure out what that pain is there to teach you about. Figure out the way that you're supposed to use that pain. Thank you.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. I'll take the book.
Thank you so much, Doug. That was terrific, and I think everyone in this room can identify with a lot of the things you were talking about, and I know a lot of people in this room have suffered their own pain and loss like you, and the fact that they're all here shows that they are putting that pain to work and trying to do something positive. So Doug has agreed kindly to take some questions, so I'm going to read them off, and you can have at it, Doug. So first question is, when you talk about using your pain, how do you differentiate embracing your pain and avoiding or pushing it off?
When I think about that question, embracing it versus avoiding and pushing it off. Like I said, I've been cut multiple times. Meaning I lost my job. That's the term the NFL used. I'm sure y'all see it on SportsCenter. But I lost my job multiple times. I've had injuries. I had deaths in my family. And it definitely takes a while to embrace that pain. It definitely takes a while to look in the mirror and see what you can do better. But when I think about that question, I think about the alternative. Do I totally just ignore the pain and walk the other way? Do I look at it and say, hey, yeah, I got cut. I didn't do anything wrong. I just got cut. Now, there's probably a reason I may have got cut sometimes, and I have to look at it and embrace it and feel and learn. So for me, to answer that question, I would say embracing it just comes from the point of acknowledging that there's always things that we can do better. There's always more to it. If we just push it to the side, there's so much left for us to accomplish out here in this world, and we got to sometimes face our pain to get through it.
Okay, thank you. Next question. As a black man, how do you share your pain, i.e. vulnerability, with other men, specifically black men, to help them use their pain and not traditionally be used by it, suppress it?
Yeah, that's a heck of a question. Seriously, because social media these days is pretty tough, And I was listening to a podcast last night with Floyd Mayweather, and he was talking about how he gets, jealousy from both sides, from white people, from black people. A lot of people experience pain just looking at some of the stuff he posts because they wish he could have some of the things that he had in life. For me, being vulnerable, I wasn't always like this. My mom used to yell at me all the time and say, just open up, just talk more, just tell me some of the things you're going through, because I would never really tell her. And so how I even got to this point was I realized that there was only a certain people that I could trust in my life. I noticed that everybody wasn't on your side. Everybody that hung around you didn't have your back. And as a black man, you got to notice that. You got to realize that, because you feel like the world is against you most of the time. You feel like there's everything, the systems, the people that you barely know, you feel like they're always cheering for you to fail. And so sometimes you have to notice that there are people that you can talk to, and there are people that you can be vulnerable with. And that's where I encourage all of my friends to start. I don't, encourage them that the first thing to do to go see a therapist. The first thing I tell them to do is find you a core group of friends. Be comfortable talking with them first. How are you going to talk to a person you don't even know, but you can't even talk to your friends? So be able to talk to them first, and then make that next step to go seeing a therapist. That's how you start with vulnerability. But for black men, we got to stop comparing ourselves to each other, And I feel like that's the issue with a lot of my friends, a lot of the people that I know, is they always want the next best thing. They always want what the next man has. Vulnerability comes from the fact that you're okay with where you are in life, and you're okay with knowing that there's things you have to do to get better. Everybody in here has their own path. Everybody in here runs their own race. And so that's what, that question means to me is being able to be a black man and be vulnerable. How I get other people to do it is to really embrace their life, really embrace, where they are in life, and really know and be honest about how they can get better.
Terrific, thank you. Here's another pretty tough question for you. If you're comfortable sharing, so they lead off with that, how has the experience of your loss and the church's response impacted your faith and belief system? Have you found any ways of integrating your mental health advocacy with the church community?
So for me, I want to be known as the best mental health religious speaker in the world. I appreciate it. My faith means more to me than anything in my life. I was taught faith at a young age. I grew up in the church. And, none of that has really changed just because of the pain that I've experienced. That hasn't changed. I mean, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. But I do think the people that's giving the message has changed. And I do think they have to change. They're still old school, They still have that old school mindset. They still don't want to address the pain. They still don't want to talk about it. They want to talk about the storm. They want to do everything that they can to deflect the science and ignore the actual things that's going on in people's lives. So, that's something that I want to work on. I want to be able to get more into churches. I already do it a lot. That's a big space of mine. I think the one that I did before this was at a church. I speak about God and mental health all the time. If you check my Twitter, you'll probably see every tweet has something to do with a scripture or, a prayer or something. So my pain has not changed the way, has not changed my faith. It's not changed the way that I believe in God, but it has changed, my drive, because I know that these people have to improve. Like if my grandma's going to look up to this person so much, they have to be careful with the things that they're saying. If people in my community, the African American community, care so much about what the pastor says, then they have to educate themselves. So, that's my motivation. That's what I want to do. So that's perfect.
All right. So this is a related question. How do we educate clergy who are stuck in their belief that prayer is the answer to all problems, including a mental health crisis?
Yeah, how do we do it? I can tell you how to do it. We got to go into churches. We got to, we can't just send papers to them. They're like, it needs to be a table, just like you got table of chapter leaders, and it need to be table of some of the top pastors in the country. That's how we change it. We change that conversation by including them in the conversation. It can't feel like it's one versus the other, and I feel like for some pastors, they feel like they're competing, They feel like it's like, well, your therapist says this, but I'm telling you this. It needs to be a joint message. I always believe there's prayer plus therapy, It's a joint combination. We can't, as an advocate, I can't do it by myself. As a chapter leader, you can't do it by yourself. As a subject matter expert, you can't do it by yourself. We all need each other to accomplish the goal of, was it the 2025 plan y'all have? It's going to take all of us to accomplish something like that. It doesn't just take one person. I'm not going to send out a tweet. Next thing you know, people stop dying. That doesn't work like that. But when you combine that with, okay, hey, like I saw Doug's tweet, man, maybe I need to go get a therapist. Okay, well, maybe I need to go, to a, out of darkness walk. And then they meet somebody that can help them. And then they meet other resources that's out there. And then they meet some of the subject matter experts that's out there. That's how you change it. And then like I said, it's all about education. The pastors, they really just don't know, I feel like. I think that's the issue. They don't know how to have that conversation. And I think they're getting to a point where, their people are requesting it. People are requesting more than just prayers these days. They know that's not good enough anymore. So I think that's what I can answer.
So another question here is, on speaking about the African American community, how can I deal with the slow suicide, in quotes, that's so prevalent, drugs and alcohol abuse?
So how do you deal with it?
Yeah. Someone's asking how you think they should try to deal with it.
Yeah.
They're not holding back, you can tell.
Yeah, no, you're good. No, it's fine, it's fine. We had this conversation in my group text all the time. It's like, which battle do we fight first? Do we fight, black on black crime, or do we fight, all the other racism that's going on in this country? Because if you look at black on black crime, it's pretty high. If we look at the crimes, the black on white racism crimes, like that's pretty high too. If we look at the systematic differences, that's pretty high. You just have to figure out what is the race that you're going to run. Like you can't, like there's so many different issues. There's world hunger. There's, mental health. There's, kids don't have clothes. Kids don't have, kids don't have a place to stay. They don't have a roof over their heads. It's so many different battles out here that you can fight. You just got to figure out what's your lane and be expert in that and do your best to focus on that. I've never been one of those people that try to know a little bit about everything. I'd rather just be an expert in one thing and just try to dedicate my life towards making that better. So as far as the alcohol and drugs, those are risk factors, when it comes to suicide. But also those are things that, through conversations you can hopefully get better. But to be honest, I really don't know. I'm going to have to leave that to the people that, that are good at that. So.
Okay, the next couple aren't quite so hard. So anyway.
That was a tough one.
That was a tough one. When I saw that one. But someone asked, can you share information on how we can put student athletes in touch with you? I currently have a young man who is a two-sport varsity athlete struggling with depression and the stigma with it as a young black athlete.
That's my lane every day of the week right there. You can reach us at dreamtheimpossible.org. And also my app is launching in the summer. It's called Extra. You can reach us at www.imextra.com. But that lane with student athletes, that's what I was put on this earth to do. I love working with student athletes. I love working with Caucasian, African American, just any student athletes in general, because so many of us struggle. Half of our struggle comes from the fact that when they turn these lights off and the playing days are over, we don't have a clue what we're going to do next. And that's scary to a lot of people. It would be scary to me too, So from the moment that I got into the NFL, I came in undrafted, so I always thought that it could end the next day anyway. But I've always focused on being able to look at other things that I can achieve in my life. Football is great. I love football. But if that's all that people say about me when I die, then I didn't live out the purpose that God had for me in my life.
Okay, that's fantastic. This is another question I think will be answered by, you could go to your website, but it's, can you tell us about your telehealth organization, how it works, and how to find it?
Yeah. So it's going to be imextra.com. Actually, we just had a call. We're getting like our list of brand ambassadors together. But we just had a call with the Bachelor, Clayton. That was pretty cool. But he wants to help out and be a brand ambassador for the app. But anyway, www.imextra.com. And we're looking for experts, psychologists, counselors, therapists, performance coaches. We want to have the whole gamut of resources. We want to be able to, the next phase, stage 2 of the app is to be able to have meditation and just really have a community for student athletes to come in and be vulnerable. So that's how you can reach out to me. dreamtheimpossible36@gmail.com is my contact. I'll have a bunch of cards and, we can talk more, but let's keep the conversation going. Like, I would love to have you all. There's so many experts, there's so many researchers in this room that I need you. I'm looking for you. I'm glad I did this talk because, I just want to be able to match my passion up with somebody that actually knows what they're talking about. So.
Okay. All right, I'm going to end up with a couple of softball questions for you, okay? So first of all, from the North Carolina chapter, they said, if you're able, you're welcome to come sit with the North Carolina chapter. We're at table number 48. Go Nears.
Go Nears.
And a plug from my colleague, our SVP of Communications, Stephanie. She wants to know, we would love to have you involved in our May campaign for mental health advocacy. So Stephanie's over there at that table, but we'll do our best to enlist you in that effort. And then this is my personal favorite question is, would you ever consider playing for the Detroit Lions? They could use your help.
Tell them to call my phone. I'm looking right now.
All right. Come on, we don't want to subject Doug to that. And then I thought we'd end, this isn't a question, it was a comment someone posted, but I thought it'd be a great way to end this session. And it's just a comment. We hear you about being a black man. We are cheering for you to succeed, Doug. You have our nationwide community on your side. Thank you for speaking with us so openly. So thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. I sincerely appreciate it.
That was terrific, Doug. And Doug's wife, Caroline, is here with him, and they're going to stay through some of the sessions tomorrow, so I'm sure that they'll be happy to talk with you. So anyway, thanks so much again, Doug. It was terrific.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Okay, we're now going to take a break. There should be some snacks and drinks out in the hallway there. And then we have a set of 4 breakout sessions this afternoon. Those will start at 4:30 and end at 5:30. And when the breakout is over, then today's session is over. You will have, tonight you're on your own. It's a free night. We'll convene bright and early tomorrow morning. I'll look forward to seeing you all at the fitness walk at 6:30. And then breakfast is at